was very concerned about what other people thought about me. And I really was afraid of failing in public. And so, like, it's quite scary, taking a risk, and there's all these armchair critics that you think would have all of these comments and things to say about your failure or successes or whatever it may be. The reality is that they'll always be there, but the bit that really was super powerful for me was when you fail, and you'll notice I say when, not if, because you will fail. You'll fail every single day on all sorts of stuff, and it's not a bad thing. It is a good thing first and foremost, because it's feedback. There is no such thing as negative failure. There's only feedback. It's usually, if only I can build my MVP, or if only I get funding, or if only I get this. Let me tell you, when you get funding, bigger problems you're facing. Right? Because then the work actually starts, and now you've got someone that's chasing you, and you've got someone to answer to. If you've got your MVP, then the problem is now you need to sell it, right? And so there's no Valhalla, if I just cross this Rubicon, then there's, everything's going to be fine. It's not the case.
It's a big misconception. And a lot of people, and sometimes it can even be the opposite. I talked to some founders and they got the funding, and it made it more stressful, and it's not like your free ticket, and then they took a lot of wrong decisions because all of a sudden they had too much money. Welcome everyone today to Founder Real Talk, another episode. Today there is Francois with me, and we're going to explore what it really takes to be a founder, because there's not that many people actually talking about the human behind the startup. And just a little intro about who Francois is, and then we're going to explore a little bit more. So Francois works at an intersection of AI, innovation, and entrepreneurship here in South Africa. But what really stands out to me was actually how deeply you think about the role of technology and how it plays actually, a significant role towards humanity. And so Francois is the founder of Otinga.io, where he helps enterprises design and scale new products through hackathons and innovation frameworks and AI-driven solutions. So that's super cool to be at the forefront where a lot of new innovation and a lot of movement is happening. But today's less about the actual startup and more about, the person and how do we actually build the startup, or how do we create businesses? And then in particular, who's that person behind, and what does it, as I said in the beginning, what does it really take to be a founder? And maybe we can start with the topic. What I came across a lot recently is nowadays everyone says in terms of AI and tech startups, everyone can do that now. You just go on Lovable, you create your app, and then you go ahead. And I was wondering, maybe you have a stake as you are in that field. So why don't we see so many startups around us? Or what would you say is so difficult, or even was difficult for you to really get going and to scale your business, and to maybe even to be, as we said, before we even started, to have the right personality or identity to be that kind of an entrepreneur, to get going? Because I believe not everyone can just start off. I mean, you can probably, but then it might be quite painful. So how did you come across that hype, or that hype?
Sure. So I think when it comes to the world of AI and entrepreneurship, I think that we are living in an age where it's never been easier to become an entrepreneur. Becoming an entrepreneur is literally seeing a problem and wanting to solve that problem within a commercial context, right? And I think that a lot of people put a mental boundary or a mental constraint on themselves by saying, I'm not an entrepreneur until I've raised, or until I've exited, or until I've met this insert goal name here, right? But the reality is that the moment you've got an idea and you want to actually solve a particular problem, and you want to do that in a commercial context, then you're an entrepreneur. I think what we're seeing at the moment is the barrier to entry has been lowered dramatically. If we go back 20 years, starting a SaaS company, if that wasn't really even a thing back then, or was just starting to become a thing, it was incredibly expensive and incredibly difficult to do. Knowledge was difficult to come by, and so it was orders of magnitude more difficult 20 years ago than it is today to start a business.
Yeah.
But what does that mean? That means that because the barrier of entry is lower, the competition is a lot more fierce. And so,
Yeah.
because everyone and their cat, I mean, my grandma could probably start a little app and code it up on Lovable or a wide plethora of different platforms and start. So I would say, I think for me specifically, I've always been someone who loves finding problems and trying to solve them. And solving the right problem is actually where most of the skill comes from. So before I started this company, I failed many, many times. And I would say roughly about between 10 and 15 times. And as part of that process, I just had literally hundreds of different startup ideas that I wrote down and then I used a scoring matrix to figure out what problem I actually want to solve and what problem should I be solving. And I think that's the first step is treating your ideas like cattle or like a usable resource that can be deleted, that can be killed, or can be, parked somewhere. Because I see a lot of people are very, very married to their ideas. And that's usually a recipe for disaster because you let if you've got a cat, you let them make a mess on the carpet, you let them knock off all your things on your bedside table while they're complaining about being hungry, right? And you're tolerating all of that because you love the cat. But if you treat your ideas like pets, they may not be serving you in the way you need to. And so if you treat them like pets, then they might start acting like pets and cause problems like pets do. And so, yeah, I think it's very important to be very deliberate in the actual problem that you want to solve. When it comes to being an entrepreneur, like I said, if you have an idea, you want to solve a particular problem, and you want to do that in a commercial context, even if that's selling lemonade on the corner, the street corner, you're an entrepreneur.
Yeah. When was the first time you introduced yourself as an entrepreneur? Was there like a specific moment where you said like, "Hey, I'm Francois, I'm a founder," or I don't know.
Yeah, I don't really call myself an entrepreneur just primarily because I think whenever I meet someone new, like it's a very human thing. They're desperately trying to put the person they see in a box. And
Yeah.
so I deliberately do not tell people like I am an entrepreneur or I am a software engineer or I'm a graphic
Yeah.
designer, a product designer, a strategist, because I'm all of those, by the way. But what I normally do is I just say, well, I'm currently the founder of a startup that solves a particular problem in the world, right? And I think that leaves the opportunity for the person I'm speaking with to create a box that they want to put me in,
I love
based on
that.
the
Yeah.
interaction.
Yeah. Because often they put you in one box and then you've got that one on, but actually that's not you because tomorrow you might be like, in a different box.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
exactly.
Oh, okay. And yeah, wow. So you mentioned that that you've built different startups and you failed, and that would be very interesting. And like, what's even your definition of failure, and like what were the moments where you knew, okay, like this is now the time that I actually have to let go of it and start something new, or like a moment where you had to like push through a bit more. I always find that super interesting, so that you probably know that cycle Alex Hormozi is always talking about. Like in the beginning, you're this motivated, how do you say, uninformed optimist. That's how he calls it.
Mm,
And then probably not even his model, anyways. But and then later you are the informed pessimist because you have all information and you realize, oh, actually it's not working. And then a lot of people that they leave that cycle and they start another one, and then they actually end up exactly at the same point.
mm.
So where's the point that for you that you said, okay, nah, that just doesn't work, or like you push through a bit more? Yeah.
Yeah, I think the problem is quite prevalent, hey, where people that question of when is this this friction or this challenge that I'm experiencing expected and part of the journey, and when is it a signal to actually change? That's a super difficult question to answer like generically, but I can tell you that that cycle happens a lot. And if you go look at the personality profile of most people who call themselves entrepreneurs or associate with entrepreneurship, they tend to have quite a distractible creative personality. Some people will call it ADHD, some people will call it neurodivergence. Other people will just call it short attention span. But the reality is if you combine those two things, it makes for someone that's easily that's looking actively for a signal to change direction. And so it's super important to know that really immensely valuable things are created by doing very boring stuff predictably. And so, I mean, you could go look at like a roofing company or whatever it is, right? Like, I don't know about you, but roofing ain't something that's super exciting to me. But if you do it predictably well, you can build an incredibly successful business on that. So I think to answer your question in the best way possible, that I can at least, is I think that the rules that or the parameters that we are using to define whether or not something is good or bad is actually super important, but almost always unconsciously defined. So what I would say is be super deliberate in the parameters that you are using to define success, e.g., progress towards a goal, or failure, e.g., not moving towards your goal or moving away from your goal, whatever that is. And I think that if you practice that deliberate effort in actually figuring out what it is that you are measuring and what are the signal attributes that will indicate to you whether or not it's a success or a failure, or heading towards a success or heading to a failure, is a good indication. I mean, a great example is Facebook, or Meta as we know today, spent many, many, many years losing loads of money. And so traditionally, that would be seen as a very, very bad business, because the parameter being used to define whether or not it's a success or a failure was profitability. But in reality, they were actually optimizing for something completely different. And the parameter they were using was daily active users. And so when you look at it that way, then it's a tremendous success. And so I think being deliberate about choosing those specific metrics is super important for you to know whether or not you're moving in the right direction or the wrong direction. Now, when you're starting out, that's difficult to do. So that's where I'd say spend time with people who's either already done it, or look at real world examples of startups that's similar to yours that is successful, and try and figure out like what are the metrics that they're using internally at the stage at which you are that would determine whether or not they're a success. And then that is a good proxy for you to.
So how do you usually do that now? Like, do you have a certain process to keep yourself accountable, and like I don't know, like once a month you set your goals for the month, and then like kind of like a time budget, or like how do you, and then you kind of like check like if you have met your KPIs, or how do you do it? I
Yeah.
mean, it's personal probably, but like that's the thing, like no one really talks about that in terms of like how do you actually do that?
Yeah, so there's loads of different frameworks and things out there, and I perpetually try new nuances of that, of goal setting and goal achieving. But what I found is the thing that probably performs the best is not necessarily goal setting. It is like system or framework setting. So, and then have leading indicators for that framework or system. So a good example is, let's use your podcast, right? So there, a really good metric is number of people in pipeline, number of episodes recorded, and number of episodes published within a given period of time, right? And so I would set up a goal being to set up a system with a practice that will get me that end result. And then I'm just a boring little robot that just executes in that system, right? But what oftentimes happens is we set these goals, they feel unachievable. We don't have an easy way to take action, and we just don't take action. I'd say that's the one bit. And then the other bit is I found that, I think it was Tony Robbins that said, we overestimate what we can do in a day and underestimate what we can do in a decade. And
Yeah.
I think it's super, super valid. I think it's him that said it, but why am I quoting a motivational speaker? The reality is that when you've got an annual goal for a year, it's tough. Because it feels unachievable. But if you know that you just need to make like 3 direct outreaches today, then it's like
Yeah.
achievable. And so
Yeah.
breaking things down onto the daily level, that's like a systemic approach, makes it a systemic approach, which is easy.
Yeah, always make that comparison with because I love the gym and like working out. But so right now, my new challenge. Well, I actually started already before because I don't do like certain setups just because there's a new year. Like I do it when I say okay, now I'm gonna start. But it's a
Mm.
handstand walk. So like at the moment, I'm just like with the handstand and like everyone can like kind of stand up.
Wow.
One can, like do a little bit of like walking or same with like a pull up. Everyone can just
Mm.
hang for 30 seconds. And at some point, if you have the power, you can just, progress. But yeah, like
Exactly.
little pieces feels more like you can actually do it and you gain the confidence as well.
Mm. I think James Clear writes about this quite a lot, and there's another author called BJ Fogg. He
Yeah.
talks about just flossing one tooth. So if you want to get into the habit of flossing your teeth, just floss one
Hmm.
tooth every night, and then eventually you'll start flossing more teeth because it becomes a habit, right?
Yeah. And it also
So
feels stupid if
small,
you just do one.
yeah. Usually what I do is I don't allow myself to exceed that like minuscule objective whenever I
Yeah.
start a new practice. So be that doing burpees, I'll be like, I'm going to do 1 today and 2 tomorrow and 3 the day
Mm,
after tomorrow. And I
yeah.
literally stop myself because I found that when you overachieve, then that creates the expectation that you'll always do that. And then
Yeah.
you're losing the power of compound growth, which is exactly what you're trying to chase, which is just a little bit of additional effort every single.
Yeah. Yeah. No, great believer.
That's quite
But in
cool.
the end, it's about following through.
Mm.
Back to the failure thing, what would you say was the biggest failure you had, like more like as a person, not even like what you didn't do, or but it was more like an identity or like a perspective maybe you didn't have, or what I often see, and I actually call myself into that box. Like I used to be this insecure overachiever, like the typical type A. So like you basically
Mm.
start your startup and you think you know it all, and then I mean now you have AI and like now you basically spend 5 hours talking to ChatGPT and you feel so empowered, but in the end it's biased, and maybe you're gonna go down the wrong way. Was there something you figured out about like yourself more like from an identity perspective that you really like made a change there because you realized, oh shit, like the perspective I have right now or the person I am at the moment, this is not actually getting me where I want to go?
I was very concerned about what other people thought about me. And
Mm,
I really was afraid of failing in public. And so like it's quite scary, taking a risk and there's all these armchair critics that you think would have all of these comments and things to say about your failure or successes or whatever it may be. The
yeah.
reality is that they'll always be there. But the bit that really was super powerful for me was when you fail, and you'll notice I say when, not if, because you will fail. You'll fail every single day on all sorts of stuff. And it's not a bad thing. It is a good thing, first and foremost, because it's feedback. There is no such thing as negative failure. There's only feedback. And then I'd say the most important thing there is that the people who will criticize you for your failure, their opinion doesn't really matter all that much.
Yeah.
Because A, they're probably not taking the risk that you are, or they do not have enough information to make a proper judgment.
Mm,
And then finally, they're just not you, right? They're not at the path, they're not on your path. And so I think that anyone who has an opinion that's negative is just invalid. And I always say, well, if you've got an opinion about how I'm running the startup, why don't you go quit your job, sell your house, take the biggest bet of your life, and then get criticized by some random person with a keyboard, right? Like, who cares? Doesn't matter,
Yeah.
right? But what I found as well is that the people whose opinions I really do care about are the people who are very close to me, that understands the challenge. And you'll almost always find that those people are incredibly supportive because they know how tough it is. And
Yeah.
secondly, whenever they criticize you, the critique is almost always designed to help you.
Yeah.
It's very, very rare that you find someone that's gone through the same level of challenge who's got like, oh, I want to just create bad intent, because it's just not how this game works, right? Like, the people who succeed are the people who create net positive value for everyone. And it starts with just being supportive when times are tough. When, once again, not if, when times are tough.
Yeah. But what did they say, or like what was it like the feedback you got?
From I don't the joke is, the most of the feedback, or most of the things that people would say, started in my head, right?
Yeah.
Which is hilarious. So it's all invented by me. And so I think that awareness of, like, first, they didn't say it. And secondly, if they say something, does it matter? And the answer is like no on both occasions. So who the hell cares? Right? Like, just I think we're so a phenomenon called the spotlight effect, if I'm not mistaken. And it's the
Mm-hmm.
perception that when you walk into a room, everyone else is looking at you. But guess what? Everyone else is also having exactly the same experience. And they're not looking at you. They're just thinking about how other people are looking at them. So
Yeah.
who cares, right? Just take the risk, back yourself, associate with people who would support you or is also going on the same journey, and try and add value to people's lives no matter where they are, because at the end of the day that leaves you more positive. But it's like what you see with all of these big philanthropists that donate billions of dollars. You think they do that for other people. Donating billions of dollars feels really good. It's a massive ego boost. They're doing it for themselves, and that's okay. So if
Yeah. Yeah.
all you want is an ego boost, just go help someone for the ego boost. But whatever it is, at least you're having a positive impact on someone else's life, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I also experience like the other way, in terms of like when you get negative feedback, that's often the fear of the other person, like basically their own fear, why they basically justify why they would not do that, because they would not. Like often, like it's basically like a mirror. Like what I realized, oh yeah, of course that person is telling me that because that's the perspective they have. I don't know if you also made that experience that you also learn to ask the right people, because probably like sometimes your friends, like they don't understand the environment and like the risk and the uncertainty you're in, or maybe even your family, your partner, whatsoever. But then there's people who understand it, and you can actually get the feedback you need. It can be positive or negative, whatever it is, but often, I mean, the people closest to you, they also want obviously the best, so often maybe they don't advise the best what you need in that situation.
100%. You don't go to the baker there at the Checkers or the local grocery store and ask them, "Hey, Mr. Baker, do you think I should get brain surgery?" Right? Like,
Mm,
it's not their area of competence. So why
yeah,
ask them? They won't
yeah.
know. So ask the right people. But I think, what's his name? Ray Dalio says life is about asking higher quality questions. And that, I would say,
Mm,
is probably one of the biggest unlocks I've had in my career, was
yeah.
just understanding that there's implicit questions that you're asking. And if you're not getting the results you're after, it's not finding the answer, it's asking better quality questions.
Yeah. Yeah, that is very true. Yeah, and that basically also opens up your horizon and like a new perspectives, and that's why, yeah, like, and did I hear it correctly? Like you said, you sold your house. Like what's the, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Sold loads of assets and stuff to be able to achieve what we've got
wow,
today. And there's
okay,
been tough times where it's been, you can't make payroll, stuff like that. It does happen. And
yeah,
I think then it is about building a relationship with people where they will support you in the company, even though stuff like that happens. And then on the converse, like, I think that there is a form of responsible bets that you can take on yourself, right? And as long as you make sure those bets are responsible, then yeah, I strongly encourage doing that, because when you are successful, and that's once again a win, because if you take enough bets and just don't die, that's the main goal is don't die. And in the startup world, that means run out of cash or clients or whatever it may be.
Yeah.
Um,
Burning
or-
out.
oh, Burning out's a great example. Then you will eventually achieve success, right? I mean, like KFC, it was ridiculous. I think the founder was like in his late 60s when he founded KFC, right? So, I mean, talk about persistence, right? I think it's also unreasonable for us to expect to be successful on the first try, right? None of us walked successfully the first time we got up. So why expect us to be successful the first time?
Did you have mentors or like people who showed you the way?
Yes, I had hundreds of mentors, literally hundreds. And I think that the word mentor is a little bit broken these days, because we think that for you to have a mentor, it's someone that you spend 45 minutes with on a phone call and they like give you advice or whatever.
Yeah.
I've had Alex Mosey whole like single-handedly taught me how to sell.
Yeah.
Single-handedly. Never met the
Yeah.
guy. Super grateful to him. He literally single-handedly taught me almost everything I know about sales. Never
Yeah.
met the guy, right?
Yeah.
Ray Dalio taught me so much about strategy. Nassim Taleb taught me about integrative systems thinking and taking risks, right? Naval Ravikant taught me about being pragmatic and how you can use luck to your advantage. And I think that, so when I say I've got literally hundreds of mentors, I just
Yeah.
consume mountains of content from incredibly influential people that
Hmm.
is literally offering their mentorships for free.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I get to just consume that.
Hmm. Do you have like a certain time set up for that? I mean, was it Bill Gates or like one of these guys like that they basically use 4 hours of their morning just to read, and then I mean, I got into speed reading because I realized if you read fast and like consume content, basic or information, and then you can apply it, you have quite a big advantage. So, like, do you have a certain time set up for that, or like it's just like your natural motivation to consume information and to grow and like self-development?
I think this is where I've gotten very lucky. So
Mm-hmm.
I am neurodivergent. I'm not like normal people in the sense of how I look at information consumption and things like that. I've got a very obsessive personality. And so, like, you will tell me about a topic today, and 2 days later, I have read everything there is about that particular topic. So I'm not really a good example of a person that's practiced like a regimented skill or a regimented, habit like that. But what I can tell you is whenever I'm on the spinning bike, I'm not, watching cat videos. I am listening to a podcast or listening to an audiobook. When I'm driving, same thing.
Yeah.
Instead of scrolling on TikTok, I'd read a book or watch an educational video on whatever topic it may be. And so I think there's so many different form factors of the same knowledge today that if you want to listen to it, listen to it. If you want to watch it, watch it. If you want to have it be read to you in the voice of a pirate, go put it in ChatGPT and have it read it to you as in the voice of a pirate, right? I think do whatever works for you, but figure out how you can acquire loads of highly condensed, tried and tested knowledge
Yeah.
that you can then most importantly implement. Because I think what happens a lot with startup founders is they become like these armchair experts. They've like, oh, but Bill
Mm.
Gates says this and Steve Jobs did that. It's like, doesn't really matter, man. Like, just pick up the phone and call your clients, right? Like, how about that? I
Yeah.
mean, it's paradigm shifting concept here. How about just like implementing some of the things that you're learning? And I think that's where most wheels come off, is implementation. There's no value if you know, like what Tony Robbins says, implement the stuff, right? And then it's valuable.
That's true. Yeah. I think I heard Kevin Trudeau talking about it. There's a lot of people, they know about it, but they don't know. Like they literally, like,
Oh, yes.
they never, it's only about it. And then, I mean, if you look back into the school system, we did not learn to really like execute. We only learned to think about it. And then, theoretically, maybe apply it in a way, but never really like, execute and feeling also the resistance and like the, how
100%.
autonomous it is, and like, yeah, like that you need this
Yeah.
consistency. Yeah.
I think that's like a perfect analogy is, how many books do you think you need to read before you'll get up and be able to tango? Like you need to get up and learn the steps and do the thing. And I think that's where a lot of people conflate like reading a book about tango versus actually just getting onto the dance floor and starting to tango very badly for the first few times,
Yeah. And it's also not about reading 100 books a year. It's about reading 5 and then really knowing everything about it, reading them like 5 times or like, I don't know how many times, and really
Yeah.
like knowing what it means. Yeah.
There's books
And
that you were saying, sorry?
and to apply the content, obviously,
Yeah.
not just reading it.
Yeah, there's books that I'm rereading for the third, fourth, fifth time now. Like Charlie Munger's Almanac. Every time I read something new, and I go like, whoa, how did I miss this? It's like, I wasn't tall enough to ride that ride, if you know what I mean, right? Like I wasn't experienced enough to even know the relevance of this particular topic.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, you actually are a different person anyways, and you have a different you have different you have gained more life experience, so you see it in a different way. There's new information.
100%.
You probably made your lessons, what worked and what did not for your case. Yeah. What was your biggest challenge, and what would you say what's the biggest challenge you faced in your years of running a startup?
I'd say the biggest challenge, and it'll continue to be the biggest challenge that I face, is myself. And I think that is, most of the time you don't realize that that's actually the challenge, right? Like all of the other stuff's easy when you master yourself.
Yeah.
Difficult client, just master yourself. You'll know how to deal with a difficult client. Like, setbacks or losses or difficulty or whatever it is, like almost always the challenge is just overcoming yourself in whatever step in your developmental journey you're at, right?
And basically broaden your out of comfort zone. Like, I mean, this is how we build confidence, right? Like we kind of like walk the talk, and like, yeah, like you make the experience, and all of a sudden the mind doesn't create anxiety because it's just normal. Yeah.
I guess also like the thing is, like the moment you embrace fear and anxiety and all of those things, you'll find that they almost vanish. Like it's when you're trying to actively avoid them when they become little monsters that runs around, So yeah, I think the other thing is also like I do lots of public speaking. Like last year I did over 50 talks, and I recall very vividly walking onto the very biggest stage I've ever done in my life. It was about 2,500 people. It's that many people that you cannot see the end of the crowd because the lights doesn't go that far.
Nice.
And
Yeah.
I was standing there and I go like, wow, okay. So how can I get myself comfortable with this very, very quickly? And the first thing I did is I made a mistake, a deliberate mistake on stage. By doing that, and you realize like, oh, I'm still breathing. No one like jumped up and started pointing at me saying failure. Like, okay, now things are okay. It's actually safe to fail, and it's safe to stumble over your words, and people will probably respect you for that as well, right? And probably make them more comfortable as well. So why not?
Yeah. Obviously, yeah, like you're more human. Like that's the reason why I started this podcast, because I wanted to, like, also inspire people that whatever you experience as a founder or like during your journey, it's normal. And like, you know, it's just, I mean, the mind is so great. I mean, it always wants, basically that's the other thing. Like whatever story you tell yourself unconsciously, like your mind is going to find evidence. And, you know, like what I see as a beauty when you start your business, like, yeah, you learn so much about yourself because you develop so fast, and like you see the business grow, yourself grow, and like, yeah, whatever kind of like fear you face, that's just you in your head. Yeah, I mean,
And I think the one thing that I'd like to add to that is, especially in the startup community,
mm,
everyone thinks that the right answer to how's things going is, no, things are great, everything is fine. That is not the right answer,
mm-mm,
because everyone's pretending to be okay while they're slowly swallowing the like bucket of glass they had to eat on the way to the networking event, you know. And the
yeah,
reality is like, oh, I'm doing fine, and it's like bleeding, and it's like, guys, just like be honest with each other. And you know what? Today was a sucky day, man. I didn't have an awesome time, but I'm here. How are you doing? You know,
yeah,
and I think that authenticity it really goes a long way. And besides that, there will be someone else that you interact with. If you're authentic, there will be someone else who is wearing a mask that is really in deep, deep, deep pain at that moment. And they're just wearing a mask. And you being authentic and vulnerable gives them permission to be like, oh, okay, it's actually okay to be like this. And guess what? And then you're just comrades, you know, in your own battles, and you kind of support each other through that. And that's what it's all about, actually.
yeah, yeah. And do you see like a trend that people are getting more authentic, or I mean, or is it more like still like old school of you have to hustle and grind and like don't show what's really gonna be like, you know? Or do you, I mean, like nowadays with the younger generation, they share everything, but also it's not really authentic quite often. It's more like another mask of like, look at me, like, you know, on Instagram, like my founder journey. But then it's also kind of like yeah, like all set up in a way. Not really like you can feel it. Like I mean, there's like yeah.
Mm,
How do you experience that?
I don't know. I mean, I've got loads of like sample and subjectivity bias that comes with this, just purely because I tend to not spend time with people who are fake because I just don't have the time for that.
Yeah.
So I am seeing more people being comfortable with being vulnerable. And I think that that is a really, really good movement in the right direction. And I think that when we look at some of these like super, super, super capable leaders that we all, you know, quote and all of this, they're just people and they make mistakes. And I think that unfortunately, us humans are wired to follow people who sound confident. And so a lot of the times we make bad choices. It's like that drunk friend sitting in the back seat and he goes like, no, guys, you need to turn right here. And and then you just turn right. And then like 2 hours later, you realize, no, it was actually left, guys. And the quiet guy in the front seat was right. And
Yeah.
and that's a bias we all have, right? Like we
Yeah.
love certainty. So I think that there's a very, very healthy balance as a leader with vulnerability
Mm,
and being uncertain in certain ways, but having certainty in others. And usually the way I look at it is this way. I say like having certainty in what your objectives are and certainty and confidence in your capability to overcome challenges. That's
mm,
something that you should always do for yourself and do for others. Be confident in that, be certain in that. The how, that's where you can be vulnerable and uncertain. But the
yeah.
reality is that if you know that if you just try enough times and don't do the same thing over and over and over again, you will eventually succeed. It's basically inevitable. So
Yeah.
if success is a certainty, then uncertainty is just what you're doing today. And that's totally fine. Like Sam
Mm,
Altman, founder of, Sam Altman, CEO of OpenAI, does not have everything figured out.
who would think like that? Who
Ne-
would think?
uh, Neither does anyone you're looking up to.
Mm,
No one has, right? And so if
yeah.
you've got that confidence to know that no one's got, it figured out. So why should you? But if you know like at least the next 3 steps, then you should be fine.
Yeah. Also, I think this is basically the job of someone who's running a business. Like, you're gonna figure out the next steps. Like, basically, this is the job you signed up for. Like, this is what should like make you
Yeah,
enjoy it, because or like bring you joy in a way. Because like you solve problems. That's what you do all day long,
mm,
and then you sell. Like you're like a problem solver and you sell. Like it's always. I mean, this is what you do.
exactly.
Yeah.
I think the
Yeah.
one other thing that's super important, and I think this is what changed for me, that's taken like really tough burnout type of energy and changed it into excited, motivated energy, is when you see whatever activity you're doing at the moment as a means to an end, then you will always see it as the obstacle. And so by virtue of seeing it as the obstacle and you overcoming this massive obstacle, it will be painful and it will suck. But if you see whatever you're doing as just the process of getting to another level to solve a more complicated problem, you might just as well enjoy solving the problem that you're currently busy with, because you're going to have to solve it in anyway. And you might experience, I'm experiencing overwhelm right now. I've got other problems that I need to solve, right? Like I just upgraded the types of problems that I'm solving right now. So you might
Yeah.
just as well enjoy it, because at the end of the day, like that's all it is. Like the more senior you become and the more successful you become, you just get more complicated and bigger problems to solve. It's not like there's like some Valhalla thing on the other side. So just make
Mm-mm.
peace with it and have fun, because it's never going to change.
It's true. It's not about arriving somewhere. It's about like progress, learning, growing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I
Was
think
was
also
there
the
like
other
a
thing,
moment where Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I think the other thing that people also struggle with is they see this one thing that will solve all of their problems, right? It's usually,
Mm,
if only I can build my MVP, or if only I get funding, or if only I get this. Let me tell you, when you get funding, bigger problems you're facing, right? Like,
mhm.
because then the work actually starts and now you've got someone that's chasing you and you've got someone to answer to. If you've got your MVP, then the problem is now you need to sell it, right? And so there's no like Valhalla, if I just cross this Rubicon, then there's, everything's going to be fine, It's not
No,
the case. Yeah.
no, that's a big misconception. And like, yeah, like a lot of people, and sometimes it can even be the opposite. Like I talked to some founders and they got the funding, and yeah, it made it like more stressful. And it's not like your free ticket. And then, like they took a lot of wrong decisions because all of a sudden they had too much money. Like, yeah, like they had to hire people and they made a lot of mistakes in that kind of era. Yeah. Did you ever raise money, or did you bootstrap
Nope.
everything? No.
Bootstrapped. I would
Okay.
say, like, I am fundamentally a little bit against the just raise money for whatever startup
Yeah.
thing that people
Yeah.
are kind of advocating for. And the reason why is because there's only a handful of types of businesses that really absolutely need funding.
Mm,
What funding does, if it is provided to someone who's inexperienced in resource allocation,
yeah.
and by virtue of you applying for money that you are not normally capable, that you're not able to access right now, it means that you've never managed that amount of money before.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so as a result, you will be incompetent in that resource allocation, at least in everyone's in varying degrees. But the challenge is that resource constraint and necessity is the master of all invention. And so when you take away the resource constraints, now you are not incentivizing people to be resourceful and inventive and creative because it necessitates it. Now you can
Yeah.
just be like, no, we'll just hire, like, we'll just pay this company an exorbitant amount of money to like build us an MVP, right?
Yeah.
Which at the end of the day creates a certain way of thinking and way of solving problems within your business that'll come
Mm,
and bite you in the future. And so if you were to ever raise, and you're successful, practicing frugality and creating artificial scenarios where you can constrain resources artificially. And it's very difficult to do this for yourself because you know the full picture. But
Yeah.
try, because that forces you to actually think in a way where your unit economics will work out, where all of your business principles and your fundamentals are straight, and the fundamental indicators are moving in the right direction. And that's the reason why, is it promotes the wrong thinking. It promotes non-optimized, wasteful thinking. The cases where I've seen funding being used in the right way is far, the cases that I've seen where it's been used wrong far outweighs the case where I've seen it being used correctly.
Especially, maybe I would like to get your take on it, especially like the successful ones, they get funding later. So the business is already, I mean, nowadays, like you can see like like the big VCs, they want traction and I want to see it works. But then you will see at some point the constraints if you can scale it. But if you start from like early on, like in some accelerators or whatsoever, they're locked in. I mean, that's what I could see like as a little, like a big pitfall. Like you locked in into a system which hasn't been properly tested. And then only because there's money constraint or equity given out, like you're like locked in and you can't really pivot. And then, especially when it comes to the team, like you haven't even tested the team, the people under stress. And that's probably the biggest factor where, I don't know, you're literally married to that person in a way, business wise. Yeah, then it's just not really working out. Yeah. How have you experienced or seen that?
I would select the investor as a person or as an entity first,
Yeah.
and then choose whether or not to accept their money.
Mm.
What you will realize, and it's difficult to comprehend, primarily because you don't have access to that money right now,
Mm.
is that the most valuable resource is not money. The most valuable resource is your time. That is the most valuable resource. And then very close second to that, I would say, is having the right people. And that's functionally right people in the right seat, but also the right people in your corner, the right people in your network. That's the most valuable thing, because then if you need money and money is the only thing you need, why not just go to the bank?
Yeah.
They'll give you money if you've got a good enough business case. And ironically, I would tell you that I would say that the best way to measure whether or not you should raise money is whether a bank would give you money if you give them a good enough business case. There needs to be some form of risk that you will take yourself, and it'll change the way you look at it. But yeah, I think people matter way more. And I think the other thing that's super important is that when you realize that you're not in a 2-year game, when you realize you're in an infinite game with infinite upside, where the longer you can have relationships, the better it is for you, then the better it will be in the long run. A lot of people are playing this game in like a 2-year or a 4-year time horizon, and that's the wrong thing to do.
How did you manage that with your family as, I don't know if you're the bread earner, but how did you started it? Like, did you start it like a hybrid in a way, or like, did you jump all in?
Yeah,
How did you
it's a good question. So
selling your house?
the first step is, I think, having a partner that is supportive of your dreams and your ambition is incredibly important. And having a partner that really wants you for you rather than what you are, like if you're a trophy or whatever it is, because a lot of people who are entrepreneurs at the end of the day do end up being trophies, just purely because of the way that they operate. And they normally high performing individuals in their professional careers as well, right? And so now you go like, well, you need to cut your budget by like 75%, right? Like our monthly budget. And I think that's a tough thing to do when someone who's with you's anchored their relationship with you as being this like fancy, successful, objectively cash flush person. So that's that's the one thing, is have someone in your life that's in it for you and for us as like a partnership. right? That's super important. And then I think the other thing is that I cut my living expenses, and I'm not kidding, by like 75%, just by like being super, super, super frugal. And that increases your runway, it increases certainty.
Yeah.
And you start valuing things differently, right? Like, I mean, it doesn't cost much to go for a hike. And people tend to have just as, I would argue, even a better time on a hike than they would evening at a club, right?
Yeah.
And so, or at a fancy restaurant. And so there's ways that you can do this that's super smart, where you're not
Yeah.
necessarily sacrificing your own happiness. And I think the other bit is that the goal that you're trying to achieve is to maximum the number of times that you can make an attempt. My philosophy was I literally had an Excel spreadsheet. This is my
Yeah.
burn rate. This is how much money I've got left. And there was like a red line and there was a yellow line. The yellow line was like, Francois, you need to go get a job, right? And that was, by the way, failure to me as well. But that's a
Is it?
story for another day. But the reality is like, this is the actual like equations that works really well. And then, now you go, should I go on this trip to Bali? And then it's like, okay, go put it in your spreadsheet and see where the red line is now. And then
Yeah.
you're like, no, I don't need a new car. I don't need to go to Bali. I need to sit here and I need to make sales calls, right?
Yeah.
And the thing that I'm reaching now is we're now at a point where we can actually start affording like nice things again. And
Yeah.
now I go like, do I buy a new car or do I spend this money and like pay someone's salary for like 6 months?
Yeah.
And then they can build a new marketing campaign for me. How badly do I want to sit on leather seats and feel fancy while stopping at the traffic light? And then if you ask yourself that question and go like, yeah, but that marketing person's probably going to get me a 10x return on investment. And you go like, yeah, I'll invest in that, right? And I think this is the big thing. When you talk to your financial advisor, all of them will tell you it's a dumb choice. But the reality is that the upside is also there, right? Like I can tell you the money that I've invested in this business and in myself,
Yeah.
there is literally not even a Ponzi scheme that can give me a better return on investment than that, right? Like, so I mean,
Yeah.
yes, it's super high risk, super
Yeah.
high risk. But I think from an investment and return on investment perspective, and eventually the risk goes down. So now when I say like literally, do I invest the money in a new car or invest it in a person's salary for the next 6 or 12 months?
Yeah.
The return on investment is a lot more certain now.
Yeah. Yeah. So did you start with like lots of sprints in the beginning to kind of test your idea and then to kind of see if people would already pay and then that's how you went on? Or like did your the specific business need a lot of upfront investment from like in terms of your time and like money wise?
Yeah. So all of the above. I had so many different ideas and I tested them with everyone. At some point I was just like every single chance I got, I even pitched like the lady behind the teller at the checkout, right? I pitched everyone with my bad ideas, right? And eventually
Yeah.
you start getting good ideas and it's not about like there's certain signals, you start discovering the signals, and the lean startup is a great way of
Mm.
practicing this. But at the end of the day, like use true signals. Like I had loads of friends who told me, yes, Francois, we would buy this thing if you built it. Built it, no one bought it. Not even my friend who said they would. Oh no, times are tough. No, priorities are changing, whatever. Like, and
Mm.
it's not because I didn't have good friends. They were just kind to me in
Mm.
that moment, right? And so the way that you get around it is by just having people's actions speak louder than words. Just have them prepay. Is it, oh, you want to buy this thing? Okay, can you guys send me a letter of intent
Yeah.
and pay the deposit so long? And then you get the real answer.
Yeah.
And so a lot of the times, and I mean, you need to be nice about this and you need to be respectful to your friends and all of that type of thing. But using real world, tangible actions is a very, very good signal when it comes to validating ideas and those types of things. And on the other side, I mean, I had an idea to create like a subscription care box for your period. And there'll be like all sorts of cool things in there, everything from heat packs to chocolate and bath bombs and all sorts of things. And then with that, what we do is that we'd use a portion of that money to fund sanitary pads for underprivileged women. Like that was the whole like idea. And people love the idea, but then I realized like lack the prerequisite equipment to actually be a person who should be leading a business like this. I'm not a female, right? Like I do not get periods. I do not understand it. And so that's a good example of a great idea, bad founder startup fit, right? Like I was not the right person. And so I tried to convince a bunch of my female friends it's like, keen to experiment. Like, here's like the entire business case and like everything that I've done. Here's all the customer development. Like, here's all. Then they look at me like I'm crazy because it's not like a passion, right? But yeah, so if there's anyone that wants to start a business like that, I'll send you the docs that 4 years old. I still believe it's a fundamentally good thing to start.
It is actually quite cool. Yeah. No, I came across like basically if you have a good idea, it's like either you have experienced like this problem yourself and you solved it, so you already have proof that this is like something that works, or you see like a manual process and you automate it, like you put on AI. Or the third thing I came across is basically you feed an emotional need, and that's what I see with all these like sports brands, like, like they buy them not because it's functional. Mostly it's because they feel more confident, or, it's more like a hype or FOMO kind of thing. But if it's not the case, or like neither of the three, or maybe there's even more, I don't know. Yeah, maybe the founder business match, like that you can actually represent it, is also a big one. Yeah.
I would say a founder startup fit is super important because I may have an idea, but I just do not have the capability to execute it well. And so as a result, like it's not useful. I always see ideas and execution as multipliers. And so like you could have a 10 out of 10 idea, 1 out of 10 execution equals 10, but you can have a 1 out of 10 idea or a 3 out of 10 idea, great execution, 30. That's reasonable. But then you get like 10 out of 10 idea, 10 out of 10 ability to execute, and then you get unicorn, right?
Yeah.
And so I think that's where you need to be. Also, things are gonna get tough, right? So you must make sure that I don't think that I cared intrinsically enough about that problem because I didn't experience it myself to be able to persist when things get really tough. And so I always ask myself, and this is a good visualization exercise to practice, is to literally go sit and you're like, okay, you've built this startup and you've got no money in the bank and you've got people's salaries to pay and there's 5 upset clients and like everyone's screaming and shouting. Do you still fundamentally care enough about that problem to persist? And if the answer is yes there, then it's a good startup for you that gives you energy.
Yeah.
And so I'd say that's super, super important.
Maybe one last question. What would you so basically when your startup would end today, what would be a feeling of relief and what would you fundamentally miss? Like what you currently care about or enjoy doing?
So if the startup ends today, what would I miss, or what would be my knee-jerk reaction to it?
Yeah, and what would feel like a big relief?
And so if the startup were to fail or stop today, right? So not fail or succeed, just stop.
Disappear. Yeah.
Disappeared. I would want to figure out why that happened. Like that's the first thing I'd like to figure out. But I think for me it would be, so it vanishes.
Yeah.
Yeah, the question would be like, okay, what next? Like, well, okay, let's figure out what next to do. Like I think a lot of people may feel relief, but that just means that they were either not thinking about it correctly or that wasn't the right business for them. or they were trying to grow too fast or do things that they shouldn't have been doing. I would say, and if you look at it, like there's two things that you think that I think you should be optimizing for in these businesses that solves a lot of problems. The first one is try to have a net positive effect in the world, right? So if you think about one of the, and I mean, regardless of which side of the fence you are with Elon Musk, if you go look at a lot of his startups, the hypotheses are always like very much human positive. Whether or not you agree with his view, the outcome is human positive, right? That's the objective.
Yeah.
And the intent. So I think the world rewards businesses in the form of revenue and growth when you have a positive impact in your net community. And I'm not talking about like social responsibility spending. I'm talking about having a positive impact and world positive impact.
Yeah.
And then the other one is, imagine you had to go up against a team of people who are absolutely in love with what they are doing. They're doing the exact same thing as you are, right? They are enjoying every single moment. It's the most fun thing ever. They are getting energy from it. They are getting up on Sunday mornings going like, yeah, I get to do this, right? And you don't feel like that. Who do you think is going to win? And so I think that optimizing for fun and enjoyment, and it starts with like giving yourself a high five when you complete a task, but it's also like just optimizing for fun, like make it fun to work at your company, make it fun for yourself. Because if you do, then you're the company that's like having fun while the other people are slogging, working, and you're just playing, right? And then it's like Naval Ravikant says, find something that looks like work for others that's play to you. That's like the optimum.
Yeah. And I mean, they even call it the game, so play.
Yeah. And when you lose, don't feel too bad. Like it's just a dice and you just rolled it badly. You know, so just roll another dice then.
It's like I often see it as like a monopoly, you know, like sometimes you end up in prison halfway, or like then you kind of like go back to start. Sometimes you get money, sometimes you don't. Sometimes you buy, sometimes you lose. Yeah, like
100%. But hey, those are the two rules. Don't die and don't go to jail because then you can't play. So,
or you have a like out of jail
get
card.
out of jail free card. Let's not stretch the analogy that far.
No. All right. No, thank you so much. Is there anything the community can support you? Because there's, yeah.
So we're currently servicing the financial services sector in South Africa. So if you know someone there and they have a need to be better or use AI in a way that's very pragmatic and they want to really innovate incrementally rather than just having something fancy on slideware, let us know. I'm super keen to work with people like that. On the other side, the way you could probably, each and every person could help me the most is, and would probably be the best thing they do today, is just to be kind to yourself and be kind to the people around you, because that just scales, right? And besides that, you can be like Bill Gates and feel good about it and selfishly be kind to other people. It's also fine, you know?
Okay, yeah. No, it's, I mean, yeah, be kind is actually quite a big one, yeah. That's true, and often gets forgotten in a way. It comes back, like, yeah, or like there's a ripple effect on it. Yeah. No, thank you so much, Francois. That was really cool. Thank you so much for your time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a fun spending time with you. You're really easy to talk to and fun to have a conversation with. So thank you for that.
Yeah, that's how it should be. Okay. Thank you.
Stuff.
Thanks for listening. Hit subscribe so you don't miss the next episode.